Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture, and don't worry, this is the last day you have to stare at this monstrosity on my face.
Gobble gobble, baby.
And don't forget you can download the news as a podcast if you search for WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. But coming up today, a worrying update on the Mauro Ranallo Corey Graves situation.
AEW are on the verge of signing one of the hottest and most exciting free agents in wrestling today.
The real reason EC3 hasn't been on our screens recently.
Why Mike Kanellis asked for his WWE release.
This is the news.
I'm going to take these bloody things off because this is awful. We're going to kick things off by talking about WWE's new top merchandise seller. Now, earlier this year, I believe Sean Ross at the Fightful.com revealed it was Becky Lynch back in March. That's 8 months ago, long time ago. She has since been overtaken by a new face, as revealed by Big Daddy Dave in this week's edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Dave writes that Bray Wyatt is now the top merch seller in the entire company. Interesting stuff there, but if you go on WWE Shop and search for The Fiend or Bray Wyatt, you get all kinds of stuff. Millions of t-shirts, gloves with a hurt heel gimmick, you get a Fiend mask, you can get a blanket, you can get mugs. There's all kinds of Fiend-based products on there. And, you know, it just proves that The Fiend is an extremely marketable gimmick. Now, it does need to be tempered somewhat because, as revealed in the latest earnings call, WWE's merch sales are down 16% on the same period this time last year. But at the same time that he's able to overtake a babyface as strong as Becky Lynch in merch sales with that Cool the Man t-shirt that she has that you could really get away with wearing in public, which isn't something you can say about a lot of wrestling merch, unfortunately. This is good. Good for Bray. Complete career turnaround. Hope he's making mad bank off these merch sales.
He's also got a spectacular Christmas jumper that I'm genuinely considering buying in the Black Friday sale.
Baby, I haven't seen that.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's horrendous, but it's a Christmas jumper, which means it's good.
It's supposed to be horrendous.
But yeah, it's amazing what happens, isn't it, when you genuinely push someone and give them support and creative freedom. It's truly fantastic that he is top merch seller.
Yeah, I'm glad. Like, his career really was in the toilet before he took that time off. I know he had that tag team with Matt Hardy, and it was kind of fun. Like, it was all right, but it wasn't really going anywhere. Like, they were just like a lower mid-card novelty act, really. So great for him. Obviously, he's the Universal Champion, phenomenal. He's the guy that SmackDown's going to be built around, presumably to WrestleMania, if they still want to have him headline or defend the belt there. Good stuff, man. I'm happy for him. He's never been anything other than a really good pro. So
it's almost like they should give more people time off and creative agency. Right, let's move on to our next story of the day and worrying developments surrounding Mauro Ranallo in a continuing update around that Corey Graves situation that really sort of sparked off around Survivor Series weekend. According to Meltzer, Mauro Ranallo is said to be in, quote, rough shape. And perhaps worse than has been reported since the Corey Graves incident. People close to Ranallo have noted that he hasn't been in a good place over the last few days, and his condition is a day-by-day thing. Now, of course, we've mentioned this before. Ranallo suffers from depression and bipolar disorder, which sort of exacerbates all the problems that you would get from just criticism online. I still think Corey Graves needlessly went after him on Saturday, whether he wants to argue it's because of brand warfare or whatever. But it's really disappointing to hear stuff like this, and we can only hope that he recovers soon. Yeah,
absolutely. Hope he finds a path to a better state of mind. These things are very, very difficult. Certain conditions you never truly heal from. You suffer bouts and you deal with them and you try and recover as best you can.
There's that fantastic documentary on him, isn't there?
Bipolar rock and roller stuff. Yeah, really good. Produced by Showtime, I believe. This whole situation just absolutely stinks. There's no other way to put it. It sucks. It's awful. At the end of the day, for me, it's primarily become a human thing of just wanting to see the guy, do what he can to make steps in the right direction and hopefully find a better state of mind and hopefully come to a point where he's able to, or he feels able enough to return to our screens, because it's gross. It really is. It's such a shame for a guy who is almost universally beloved among the fan base and amongst his peers as well.
Get well soon, Mara.
Absolutely. So let's move on. Let's pivot over to AEW. For a second, it looks like they are on the verge of signing one of the most touted and celebrated, really, prospects on the entire indie scene, that being Chris Statlander, who has appeared on recent episodes of Dark. She was on this week's Dynamite, losing a couple of tag matches on both appearances, but emerging as the clear standout performer in both of those. She's got great offense. She's only been wrestling for something like 2 years, but she already demonstrates an aptitude far beyond that. Now, the story behind this, it comes from Big Daddy Dave, by the way, in the Observer newsletter. The story here is that WWE were extremely interested in Statlander. In fact, they were so convinced that a deal was going to be done that they expected her to report in with the company in January. She was going to join the Performance Center. This was actually reported a few weeks ago, and some outlets even went as far as saying that WWE had actually signed her. But that was not the case. Apparently, WWE just didn't send the contract through, so Statlander booked herself for these, or got booked for these AEW shows, and now appears to be on her way to All Elite. So this is one hell of a coup for the company. Maybe not quite the finished article yet, but she'll immediately be one of the best wrestlers in that division. A division that hasn't really taken off to the extent that AEW would have wanted. And with Kenny Omega promising that the division will take big steps forward and they'll add new faces in 2020, a really good start.
Yeah, brilliant signing for the women's division in AEW. I thought Statlander looked amazing on this week's Dynamite. And a weird sort of dropping of the ball from WWE. We often mention sort of free agents, and it genuinely normally comes down to literally just who you would prefer to work for. But it seemed like WWE had Statlander in the bag and just sort of took their eye off the ball. Yeah,
it did. It really does. And that's odd at a time when they're just like, give me all the toys. Give me all the toys. But, you know, it's good for Statlander, I think, ultimately. The NXT women's division is obviously phenomenal. I think it's the best women's division in the world. Yeah. It's so layered. There's so many talented people. There's so many different stories and feuds and matches that they can build intertwining together. It's really exciting. But the thing is, obviously, once you get onto Raw or SmackDown after a couple of years down, then, you know, history tells us that it might not work out as well. So with AEW, presuming the company, you know, survives and passes through its several years of action, it's good for her. She'll probably be featured as a focus performer almost straight away, I would imagine. So yeah, I'm very excited. Good for her, good for the company, good all round.
Someone's getting fired in WWE. Right, let's move on and talk about EC3, who hasn't been on our screens for absolutely ages, since September, in fact. And even then, he was probably just sort of walking back around in the background, carrying a red cup, looking sad for himself. Really weird what they've done with him since they brought him up to the main roster. Like, Vince looked at him and was like, God damn it, pal. Then he sort of went 50-50 with Dean Ambrose, remember him? And then they just sort of went,
still a work.
Nah. So anyway, the real reason he hasn't been on TV, I was going to say thankfully then, I suppose, thankfully in terms of a creative, as in he's not just been creatively been disregarded, I suppose, that's what I mean by that, is he has been suffering from a concussion, of course, according to Dave Meltzer. So that's why you haven't seen him on any WWE programming for the last couple of months. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of his when he was in NXT, but I could easily see why they would bring him up, and I thought he was going to have a rocket strapped to his back.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd one. It's a really curious case for EC3 because, you know, he's not the best wrestler. He's never been the best wrestler. That's not what he's about. But he looks great in a suit. He's big, he's jacked, he can talk, he plays his character well. He's a really great heel when given the opportunity to be one. That ticks a lot of Vince McMahon's boxes, but obviously he arrived. They put him in those weird segments where he just showed up without talking, which is odd because he's a great promo. He had that back and forth thing with Dean Ambrose, and now he's just kind of farting around in the 24/7 division. It's an odd situation. From a professional standpoint, I just kind of hope that when he is able to come back, he either gets his release and is able to do his craft somewhere else, or they put him on TV and let him do cool things.
Probably not either.
Probably neither of those.
But yes, hopefully he can return soon, get well soon, EC3, and hopefully they will have anything for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of guys they don't really have a lot for, Mike Kanellis disappeared off TV following that cookery storyline, hasn't he? In fact...
was that ever resolved? Was it just like, yep, you're not the dad, and goodbye?
Yeah, I think they just kind of scrapped that when they were like, actually, we prefer Lana and Bobo. he has given a new interview with the Smarks and Stripes podcast.
Great title.
A really good name, in which he talks about his WWE release and specifically why he asked for his release. So I'm just going to read you a couple of quotes here from Mr. K. He says, "It was all personal. It had nothing to do with the company. Since the minute I got to WWE, they've treated me great. They've treated my wife great. They've treated my daughter great. They've treated me great. Now that my mind is clear, my head is clear, I just want to work. I just want to wrestle. I feel like I could have the best matches of my career right now, and it's extremely difficult when there are so many people on the roster and you just don't get that opportunity." So, hard to begrudge any of that, really. Mr. K wanting his release, wants to do some wrestling. For the record, his last WWE match, like TV house show, any match, was on the 24th of September episode of SmackDown when he lost to Chad Gable in 19 seconds. So, not had a good time on television this year, Mr. Kanellis. We'll see what ends up.
Whenever I think about Mike Kanellis, I think it's inexplicable. I realise that the company holds grudges and they perceive that Maria coming in and getting pregnant and then them having to pay her for bloody having a child, like that's how life works, guys. And then obviously Mike having his issues, but in reality, you've been handed one of the best babyface stories you could possibly have in terms of this road to redemption. He was completely off the rails. He's recovered. He looks phenomenal, and they went, nah. Yeah, say his wife's having a kid with someone else. It's like, tell you what, have Mike Kanellis fight with EC3. It's, as Adam Cleary says, it's so easy to book WWE. If you've got nothing for him, just do that on main event.
I got another little snippet actually from Big Daddy Dave in The Observer. I've realised we've quoted him like 700 times, which will annoy some people for whatever reason.
It's almost like he's a reliable news source.
Yeah, it's weird. Dave in The Observer this week actually wrote that Kanellis is looking to get into motivational speaking.
Good.
So that's a cool avenue for a guy who obviously has had his demons, he's struggled, he's overcome them, he's got a great story, like you said, and he seems like a really nice guy. So
yes, we Kanellis.
Hey, there we go.
There you go, Mike. That's all yours, mate.
There we
right,
go.
Let's move on to your Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE. Of course, if you want to get in touch. First question today comes from Jeff Bone.
Tony's brother, is it?
Says, do you think they held back in the main event this past Wednesday and ended it the way they did so they can build a Ciampa Balor Cole program ending with a three-way at TakeOver Portland with one beating Cole and transitioning to a Balor Ciampa program?
Yep. I mean, the match was good. It was a good match. But I don't think it was any kind of blowaway out of this world.
It was a taster, wasn't it? It was like...
It was a little... It was an appetizer for the entree to come. That's exactly where I think they're going. That's exactly what I think they did. I think they didn't cruise in like second gear or whatever, but they were hovering around third or fourth. They weren't like, let's go and blow the doors off. Let's leave some stuff on the table. Let's leave some gas in the tank so that when we get to this program or this triple threat and everything else, we can really just set the world ablaze. So yeah, it was a wise move.
I sense it's going to be sort of Balor versus Ciampa for the title around WrestleMania weekend.
I agree.
Although I also wouldn't rule out them like sort of rolling over this triple threat and potentially making it a fatal four-way, because adding Johnny Gargano to that mix makes me happy.
I like to wrestle.
I like Johnny Gargano. Phil's going to have a fight with you.
I'm sure he's a nice guy, but...
Come on, Johnny. Right, so the next question today comes from No Nast November, who says, how about a 30-man/15 tag team Royal Rumble match on the kickoff show this year? So teams enter together, so it's a shorter, faster Rumble. One member of the team gets eliminated, the entire team is out. The winner gets the title shot at Mania. How about it? I think this is a great idea.
That sounds like an absolute cluster. I'm totally in for that. Imagine how chaotic that would be. 4 guys in the ring from the start, another 2 coming down. Yeah, no, like I think that's different enough from like a standard singles Royal Rumble to not burn the format out. And like you say, it would be over in like 20-30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Why not just have 30 guys?
And you can also have a bit of the old, boy poppers coming out, like Scotty 2 Hotty and Rikishi could come out or whatever.
Yeah,
like stuff like that, and like you could chuck in some old school tag teams.
Yeah, no, that sounds like fun, man. Do it, please.
Good work.
I like banter matches, and that sounds like a banter match.
Final question today comes from Trissy Wissy, no relation to Sidgy Widgy, of course, who says, is it a coincidence that the 2 people The Fiend has had a feud with turned heel, Finn Balor First Balor, sorry, now Rollins. And do you think those were his intentions all along?
He was going to corrupt them, was he? He was going to turn them evil with his poison. I don't necessarily think so. I think that's more of just a coincidence than anything else. I think the Balor thing just made sense from a narrative standpoint to have him go down there and decide he's had enough of this little snot-nosed top guy who's taken his spot as the beloved NXT hero. I don't necessarily think it's all tied together. I think Seth was a necessity as well. If it is, if that is the narrative and they've just, not beaten you over the head with it like they often do with storylines, it's really good booking, but I think it's just a coincidence.
I think it's just a coincidence for the exact reason that you just mentioned. If WWE want to get something across, they tweet about it, tout about it, they put it all over social media, and they're not subtle whatsoever. Yeah. Right, let's move on to today's and finally, and I thought this might ruin your day if I told you this, because there's a thing I just saw on Reddit Squared Circle this morning, which is a WWE storyline generator. You can just go on it, has a little button that just says swerve, and it says, be just like Vince. What will WWE's next story be? And I want to tell you the first thing that came up when I pressed swerve. So, WWE storyline generator, picture this, Andy Murray. Shinsuke Nakamura has a one-night stand with Donald Trump and gets a huge pop. So that's my morning ruined. I'm going to be doing that all morning. It might work, that. It's going to be such a good one-night stand. It'll be the best one-night stand you've ever had. Go and check it out.
Shinsuke Nakamura piping Donald Trump, man. Jesus Christ.
Enjoy that this afternoon.
Oh, God. I'm going to have fun with that on my lunch break.
Absolutely.
Not the Shinsuke Nakamura and Trump. Do the...
Oh, God. Jesus. This gives me a headache, that.
That's the noise it makes.
Yeah, indeed. Let's know your thoughts on that and all today's news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. For daily wrestling podcasts, myself and the Dudley Boys will be doing a SmackDown preview a little bit later on today. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there, follow both of us. You can follow him at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Hail Hamflet.
The worst of the three after.
Not Satan and Lucifer like the other day.
You can follow me at Adam Wilborn, which is where you can find a link to donate to Movember, a fantastic cause for men's health, which is why this has been happening for the last month. I do apologise, you've had to stare at this.
I like it, man. I'm with it.
No one else does. Right. My thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.